was just waiting for the timer to start. Sometimes there's a little bit of a pause. So I've just come across a report which is very troubling, but also not very surprising. And this has been reported in numerous sources, but I'm just going to use the Daily Express because it's in front of me, the screen report. And here it is. This is not something you'll see in The Guardian or The Independent. Obviously, papers all have a bit of an agenda, they all have a particular angle, but it is what it is. I'm going to read this out. The report's by Max Parry. Man arrested after racist, in inverted commas, video slams Palestinian flags put up in UK street. In a minute-long clip posted to X, Met police officers are seen handcuffing a man and leading him outside to a police van. A man has been arrested after a video was shared online criticising those who put up Palestinian flags in a UK neighbourhood. In a minute-long video clip posted to X, formerly Twitter, Met police officers are seen handcuffing a man and leading him outside to a police van. The arrest, made at 9:55 p.m. on Tuesday, October the 31st, that's Halloween night, in East London, comes after a video was posted on Facebook where the person behind the camera appears to condemn the number of Palestinian flags on Bethnal Green Road. The person filming appears to say, "Look at this crap here," this is a verbatim, "look at this crap here," while zooming in a number of flags attached to lampposts and road signs. "You let them into the country and this is the shit they come up with," the person then adds. The Met Police have confirmed they arrested a man on suspicion of racially aggravated Section 5 public order offence. I'll come back to this point because it's important, it's an important detail. According to the force, he remains in custody at an East London police station. This was reported, I should say, on the 1st of November, so I don't know if that's still the case. If it is, it's very concerning. A spokesperson for the force told express.co.uk, "We are aware of a video circulating on social media that shows the arrest of a man on suspicion of a racially aggravated Section 5 public order offence. An initial arrest inquiry was previously made at the address. However, nobody was home and arrest inquiries were conducted at the later time of 9:55 p.m. on Tuesday, October the 31st, when the arrest was made. The arrested man was taken to an East London police station where he remains at this time. More than 1,000 officers are providing high visibility patrols across London, particularly where we know communities feel vulnerable. We take all allegations of hate crime incredibly seriously. Where offences have taken place, our officers are attending, supporting victims and making arrests, and we will continue to do so." Now, that's very significant. In fact, before I continue, I'll just touch on that. We take all allegations of hate crime incredibly seriously. Where offences have taken place, our officers are attending, supporting victims, and making arrests, and we will continue to do so. Well, the obvious question is, where is the victim here? Now, someone's obviously reported him because they didn't like the clip that he shared criticising the flags. But where is the victim? On this man has called for violence. On this man has named individuals and advocated some sort of mob to gather outside the house or something like that. Frankly, I think that is a disgraceful misuse of what hate crime legislation should be. Now, well, I'll finish the report and come back to this, but I think you can tell where I lie with this. This comes, that's after the quote I've made, this comes after hundreds of pro-Palestinian Palestine protesters gathered at London Liverpool Street Station on Tuesday evening following demanding a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. A sea of people, many of whom were holding banners and Palestinian flags, were sitting in the main foyer of the station at rush hour, connecting the centre of the capital with North East London and East Anglia. People can be heard chanting, "What do we want? Ceasefire. When do we want it now?" The group staging the movement is SOAS detainee support, who forewarned of the planned campaign earlier today. Onlookers entering the station branded the action as absolutely massive and said there were thousands present. Those who were not a part of the action are seen zigzagging between those on the floor as they navigate the crowds, while obviously trying to get to their trains. And I think that's the end of the report. Right, this raises a lot of questions. The Met are saying that they're going to be ruthless where a line is crossed. Mark Riley has clearly said that. But there is a very glaring elephant in the room with this. When a crowd were calling for jihad. When they gathered round, the speaker was calling for jihad and they were plotting that. The police done nothing. When complaints were made, they came up with a pathetic little soundbite, we'll talk to them. Now, when a man is criticising flags on a street, it doesn't even suggest that he, ripped them down or vandalised them or anything like that. He simply questioned why they were there. Now, the line about you let people into this country, some might see as racist. But really, here's the problem as I see it. Um, there is a lack of consistency. There is a glaring lack of consistency. And yes, arrests have been made more recently. The police have stepped up a little bit, but only after criticism that they were being lax. They've stepped up in the last few days and arrests have been made. But I think there's a very good argument to, if not outright ban some of these demonstrations, at least ban them in certain areas. I absolutely don't think that the march plan for Remembrance Sunday should go anywhere near the cenotaph. I think that would be grossly disrespectful. Organisers might claim it's poignant precisely because of that day. I think it would be grossly disrespectful. I think, given some of the very unsavoury anti-Western elements in these crowds, without question, then there's a very high risk that there will be vandalism of the cenotaph. It's happened before. Um, the Metropolitan Police, as I understand it, have the power to say yes or no to where demonstrations take place. Well, they should get some backbone and say, no, it's not happening there. Designate another route. If they're not banning it outright, as has happened in mainland Europe, at least designate another route. If they allow that to go ahead and the cenotaph is vandalised, I do think the police will be partly responsible. But I think there is a glaring question here. Basically, whose side is the police on? I'm not talking just about pro-Israel or pro-Palestine. It's, I don't think the police should take a position on that. I'm talking about deeper issues. I'm talking about clearly anti-British forces in our midst. People who, wish harm against this country are clearly threatening violence, clearly intimidating people. Yes, arrests have been made, but I really do believe at this point, I don't trust the Metropolitan Police. It's two extremes. If they're not openly abusing their power, then they're utterly incompetent. What happened to good old-fashioned policing? Just arresting criminals. And they will say, of course, they do that. But the thing is, when it comes to public service like the police, they could do 10 good things. One really bad thing is enough to damage their reputation. They have to understand that. Did the officer in the clip, he's just reading off his lines, tone deaf. It was reported in Sky News Australia. This one's actually made international news. And they pointed out that, his very distressed wife is battling cancer. Now, I question why they decided they took it on themselves to prioritize arresting this man. They went the first time he wasn't there, they went back. I question if that was an Islamist hate preacher, would they be so robust? I'm not convinced. Remember, they only started making arrests after there was public anger because there were scenes of bigoted idiots tearing down posters of kidnapped children. Okay, not Israeli flags, kidnapped children. There's something very sick about that mindset. The police have done nothing. The police told a Jewish charity not to display a van showing images of kidnapped children. So I think what's happening is the police are basically caving into the mob and they're taking the easy approach. This man was an easy target, because he's on his own. He's not part of a group. Now, if he was some football hooligan, abusing Muslims or something like that, I'd be a lot less sympathetic. But there is something going on. I really believe that. And I think that the police at the moment, their trust is at rock bottom and it's entirely their own fault. If you use the wrong pronoun online, you could be absolutely sure the Metropolitan Police will turn up to your door, or there's a reasonable chance that will happen, I should say. But, you express concern about people who have shown a hostility to this country. Maybe the words he used are not the words I would use. He came out with a sort of nationalistic statement of where they're coming from. This is the shit that happens. But, there's a valid debate around that. That itself should not be designated a hate crime. He hasn't named individuals. He hasn't made some sort of racist statement. He said, you let them in. He hasn't used some sort of racialized thing about black people or Asian people. I think this is an abuse of the legislation. But I also blame ministers for drafting that legislation in the first place. I've long been concerned about how hate crime legislation is used. Basically, I believe where you have a clear incident of abuse, that is, for example, someone hurling abuse or physically attacking someone, that's a no brainer. They're a thug and they should be arrested. But someone simply stating their opinion or, let's say, advocating an opinion that is not advocating violence, it's a little bit different if someone's, making a statement that's clearly inciting violence. The police have to understand the optics of this. They say they're going to be ruthless. Well, they are being ruthless, but are they being ruthless with the right people? I mean, I really don't think this man should have been arrested. As far as I could tell, he hasn't incited violence. He hasn't even caused any vandalism. He hasn't, named any individuals. Is it really worth police resources to look into that? They might argue they're trying to lower tensions, but all this will do is build tensions because it will damage trust in the police. And I wonder, do those officers that do, get involved in arrests like this, are they proud of themselves? Is that why they joined the police? You know, or I mean, are they in the business of serving the public or turning a blind eye to actual criminals? These are very real questions. I really think, like, I always try to be fair to the police. There are examples of individual bravery, but frankly, there's also a hell of a lot of examples of sheer bloody incompetence, of abuse of power, of inconsistent decisions. And it's extremes. If they aren't, clearly abusing the power, by arresting people when they really shouldn't be, or, picking easy targets, then, they're just engaging in woke orthodoxy rather than actually doing back to basic policing. There's something very, very morally corrupt about what's going on, actually. It's infuriating. It's more than infuriating, it's actually quite scary because when you have people who are tasked with supposedly upholding the law, and there's such a trust deficit, largely of their own making, I won't say entirely, they will they will talk about stretched resources and so on. Well, that line can only be used to an extent because these are ideological decisions taken at the top. So yes, Mark Riley has to take a lot of blame. I wouldn't say the policing federation's entirely innocent either when it comes to abuse of power. You know, I'm just like any normal member of the public. I just want to see the police arresting criminals. I want to see the police arresting people who are causing harm to society, not arresting people simply for asking questions. But if someone's chanting an anti-Semitic chant or an anti-Muslim chant, you know, then yeah, they should be arrested. That's different because it's incitement. Now, this man simply asking why these flags are in the street, to me, that is just not a priority. So why are they prioritizing it? The fact that they went back to his house proves that they are. Technically, technically, they might argue, well, this was a Section 5 breach. So technically, they may have been within the rights to arrest him. But the question here is, so I'm not saying this was a false arrest, but I'm questioning what their priorities are. That's my concern because they say that the resources are stretched. Well, when it comes to things like this, oh, they're very quick to be seen then. During the pandemic, they were everywhere to be seen. You breached the COVID lockdown in the tiniest way. They were straight there at your doorstep. So I think there are very legitimate public questions about what their priorities are. Are they on the side of the law abiding public or not? Or are they on the side of extremists? by enabling them, by turning a blind eye to them. Like I say, arrests have been made in recent days at these demos, but only after the criticism of their lax approach. It's like just stop oil. They've done absolutely nothing. And then finally, when they start acting, yes, again, arrests are made, but you see footage of the police slowly walking along with, oh, please don't do this. This is, please, it's, negotiating with them. Now, that's a clear case where you have people who are hurting the public. The police should be acting. It's this inconsistency that people find infuriating. I mean, most people looking at that would say that man isn't, inciting violence. He isn't causing violence. He isn't attacking any individual. And it's just something fundamentally wrong when they arrest him. But they're very slow to arrest those women who were tearing down pictures of kidnapped children. I think they have now spoken to them. But are they being held, for 2 days, facing further questions? These are the questions that need to be asked. Are the police consistent? I don't think they are. I'm thinking specifically about the Metropolitan Police, but this can apply to any force. Are they consistent? I don't think they are. That is a serious, serious problem. And honestly, the Met's particularly bad, but I don't think any force is perfect in this sense. And they might say well, you can't have perfection, but is it so much to ask to have basic policing rather than making the wrong priorities, appeasing extremists, appeasing mobs? Because when they asked that Jewish charity to, not display images of kidnapped children, what message does that send out? What message does that send out? It sends out a message that they're going to appease the mob. And of course, if they make arrests of Islamists, there'll be the sympathizers of that contingent who will criticize the police. But the police themselves have to ask the question, who are we serving here? Are we serving extremists or are we serving the public? Of course, extremists will complain. They'll always be anti-police. But we're now in a situation where law-abiding members of the public, like myself, like many others, are really fast losing trust in the police because it's extremes. If it isn't extreme incompetence and this apathetic, hands-off approach, then it's clear abuse of power. It's two extremes. And of course, there's individual police officers who are brave, but there's also individual police officers who are a disgrace to the uniform. It's not just the Metropolitan Police. I mentioned recently the case in West Yorkshire, the woman police officer who arrested the autistic girl in her house. That caused a lot of anger there. It turns out been involved in yet another incident. She was filmed pepper spraying someone in the face, frantically running around pepper spraying people. Now, there may be more to that. Maybe it was a public disturbance. But I think, from what I've seen of her, she's a loose cannon. They should let her go. Someone who doesn't have that sort of self-control isn't fit to be in the police. It's not an easy job. I get that. So this is always the caveat I make. I know it's not an easy job, but frankly, their negative reputation right now is largely of their own making. It's these decisions that are made. It's a lack of consistency. It's very, very questionable priorities. They are destroying public trust. Now, once again, what the man said, just quote it again. Maybe it's not the words I would have chosen. It's not exactly diplomatic. But frankly, when you look at the number of Islamists, the number of Hamas supporters, the number of anti-Semites, then frankly, maybe he has a point. The person filming appears to say, look at this crap here, while zooming in on a number of flags. You let them into the country, and this is the shite 5 letters they come up with. Now, some might say, oh, well, he's being jingoistic, he's attacking migrants or whatever, but, there's no specifics there. He's not targeting any specific ethnic group. He's talking about a changing country. He's talking about people who are not integrating. He's talking about people who are more loyal to Palestine than they are to Britain. These are legitimate questions. Even if you disagree with him, You would have to concede that there is an issue here about prioritization. Even if you say, wait, hold up, Nathan, the guy was inciting. I question who's the victim here. Who is fearing for their life in this incident? Contrast that with Jewish people who have to hear anti Semitic chants, jihad calls. The police really, it's infuriating because I think the public feels so utterly powerless. Thank God for a free press, because without that, anyway, I'll post a link to the Sky News Australia report, and if I can, if it doesn't take up too much space, the Express report I've just read. But frankly, this is not a unique situation. There are many, many, many examples of police taking the wrong priorities. And they might argue that, well, this is the law, it's Section 5. Technically, they may have been upholding the law. But it gets into a question of what are they prioritizing. And I would say that they are prioritizing the wrong things. I would say they're taking easy choices. And that in itself is bad policing. Why? Because it sends out the wrong message. Now, what people want to see is violent criminals arrested, and that also happens, it does. But there's another thing about this. Someone who has had their home burgled, they'll probably have to wait hours and hours to get a police visit. And then the police will say, oh, sorry, our resources were stretched. But they prioritize this. The time that they spent following up on this guy, a non-violent offense, non-threatening offense, the time they do that, they could have been following up on a burglar or a jihadist for that matter. It's absolutely inexplicable and infuriating. And it does raise the question, whose side are they on? Riley says they're going to be ruthless. I say, who? Who are you going to be ruthless with? And are you only arresting Islamist fanatics because of public pressure? Or are you doing it because, A, it's upholding the law and it's the right thing to do? I really question what police priorities are. If I was living in London, I'd have very little confidence right now.